Good morning. Today I wanted to talk about a subject close to my heart, which is electronic music, or music, electroacoustic music is another word for it. And right from the beginning of my life almost, I was experimenting with electronic sounds, studio techniques, as well as more avant-garde experiments in electronics. My father had a huge collection of records, including Stockhausen's Microphony 1 and 2, and other pieces of electronic music that were around in the late 60s when I was born. But I remember I was first really encapsulated, no, that's the wrong word. I can't really think of the right word in this case. Taken up by, inspired by electronic music. It was hearing Gesang der Jünglinge, the great 1951 Stockhausen, his first masterpiece really of electronic music, and then later Stimmung, which is it's not really electronic music, except that the singers are mic'd up, and then I was lucky enough to help in a performance of Sternklang in Birmingham in the early 1990s, and happened to meet and spend some time with the great man himself. When I was growing up, there were many jokes about Stockhausen, about how be careful if you tread in it and all that sort of rubbish, but I think he was a pioneer, and he wasn't just a pioneer for contemporary avant-garde electronic music and other interesting ideas musically, but also, of course, the rock and pop groups of the late 1960s were also very much influenced by what Stockhausen was doing, even if they didn't necessarily like the music itself. His experiments were very important. And I can say quite honestly that almost every piece of music I've ever written, even if it was for an orchestra with no possibility of writing for electroacoustic layer, if you like, to the piece, the layer has been there in my mind. So, you know, even pieces for the St. Petersburg State Symphony Orchestra, which I composed, there was no possibility of doing electronic music with that, but it was there in my mind anyway, and I quite often recorded material towards the electroacoustic layer, as it were, whereas in the past this was rarely possible, although I have done electroacoustic works with concert organisations. The computer has made it more and more possible to do this. I mean, many of the music software packages, you can do all sorts of fascinating things with sound, and it's almost like I'm trying to always mix together, plait together the sound of the original instrument and manipulations of the same sound. So it's like you're not sure where you're hearing a live instrument and where you're hearing a sort of extended, what's the word for that, cyborg instrument, if you like, where there's the instrument plus its after images and little microtonal flourishes which give a different quality to the sound without losing the liveness of the music, if you like, because I've been to many electroacoustic concerts in the past, particularly in the sort of the 80s and early 90s, where you're just looking at a speaker, and that of course is not interesting. You sit in an audience looking at a speaker is not inspiring, whereas if you're looking at a player interacting with his own after images and manipulations of the sound that he's making, that is much more interesting. It's still a performance, and it's almost a kind of duet. He's duetting with himself, if you like, or if it's an orchestra or an ensemble, then they're sort of duetting with themselves. Unfortunately, it seems to be getting rather noisy around here, so I'll probably have more to say on this subject in the future, but for the moment I'm signing off for today. And as always, thank you very much for listening.